What's going on, everybody? This is the Blockchain Backer, bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we'll be taking a look over here at the Bitcoin price chart, along with the XRP price chart, as the stock market rallies back yesterday afternoon off the news of Donald Trump announcing that there will be a 90-day pause to the tariffs in all countries except for China, which is being bumped up to 125%. In yesterday's live stream, I put Max Payne ? In the title, as it seemed like the market had reached a breaking point in regards to sentiment and things that were happening in the market in the middle of the night prior. There was some wonky behavior happening over there in the bond market. And while Trump's advisors and cabinet came out and said this was all part of the plan, Trump did say the reason that they did it was due to the bond market behavior. So not really sure. Either way, the stock market closed out amazing yesterday with the Nasdaq up over 12% and the S&P 500 over 9%, the Dow over 7%, and the Russell in the same ballpark. In markets in the morning yesterday, we pointed to the relative strength index of the Russell 2000 to show what price behaved like during the C19 crash, and that it had dipped down here into extreme oversold conditions and then took a second dip down in here for these two moments right here, then actual capitulation, taking it into that extreme oversold. Over in here, we had obviously hit into it back in March, and then this event took us down into it again, into even more oversold conditions than during C19. So price ricochets out of there, and the question is, how long can it last? We've been talking about how these can behave in here for the stock market, and that it seemed likely that we were down in one of these types of spots in here. Been using these examples in here of what price can do when you get down in here. Sure enough, there's the ricochet. But I do think we're kind of left in a moment in here for the stock market on whether or not it's going to revisit these lows again one more time. That's typically what you do in these types of behaviors, but there are things that we have talked about, and that's that what usually happens is it comes in and just absolutely annihilates everything in the stop loss realm as these things climb in here, and you can see that happening on all of these, right? That's just usually what happens. The thing is, as you can notice, when these bounces come out in here, we still haven't taken out the last ones. Same thing in here. We still haven't taken out the last ones, and it takes that one more to go finally get it. Same in here to finally get it. But we've already taken them all, right? And in addition, like we talked about, hits the previous high. That's what happens here. Hits the previous high. It's what happens over here. It hits the previous high. And so we've kind of already done all those phases in there. But while the market is celebrating, of course, a bounce and some excitement about that, I don't think this story is quite done yet. People are happy, of course, to see a little bit of relief come in there in regards to all the other countries. But I think we all of us kind of know the main story is China. And that thing has definitely not de-escalated. And that's where the vast majority of trade happens from. So I think this story is still developing. But from a technical perspective on what we would expect in these things to take out all of those stops in there, that has already been completed. So still probably lots of volatility in here, but I'm sure for a lot of people, right, that was a pretty rough moment. That was a weird moment. That was an uncertain moment. There still is a lot of uncertainty, but there's a sense of a little bit of relief in there to see that there's a willingness to change on stance if things get out of control. And I think a lot of people probably feel a little bit better about that. As for things like crypto and Bitcoin, of course, Bitcoin caught a pop from $77,000 up to $83,000 and still sits right in here. After the initial pop, it hasn't taken off. Markets haven't opened yet. We're going to get CPI today. We're going to see how the stock market reacts the day after the news, right? If I was just to completely ignore the news, the narratives, everything happening out there, and just from a technical perspective of what I would want to eventually see is just to see prices get back up to the top of this range at about $88,000, and it's probably going to pause out here for a minute, and then we can go take the stab afterwards. It would be typical standard behavior. The thing more on my radar right now is what's going to happen here with the XRP price chart and whether or not it has to dip any lower. You would think if we were capitulating, that price would just kind of keep going down and we wouldn't revisit back to these price levels once again. The fact that we're getting back up in here is a pretty good sign, and I do think we have kind of a news narrative on our end that has the potential to give it a little bit of a break to happen pretty soon. And to be aware of that, yesterday, Paul Atkins was confirmed to be the chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission. So goodbye, Gary Gensler. Hello, Paul Atkins. Paul Atkins is pro-crypto. And Fred Rispoli posted yesterday saying on the SEC versus Ripple lawsuit, expect to see something happen on or before next Wednesday, April 16th, the due date for Ripple's appellate brief. Ripple cannot get an extension and either has to file it with a 10% chance, or there will be a notice of settlement or withdrawal, a 90% chance. So if you recall, Stuart Alderati, lead counsel of Ripple, has announced that the suit is completely over. It's settled. It's done. So is Brad Garlinghouse. They've announced the terms of it, $50 million. However, the SEC has not made the formal announcement yet. And it seems like they've been waiting for Paul Atkins to get into office to be the one to sign off on that. So it would seem that here within the next couple of days, we're going to get the formal announcement from the SEC that it is over, apparently by April 16th. And could that be the juice that gives you the push back into the retracement levels, right? If the market conditions are not giving enough juice for something like that to do it, could the catalyst be the thing to do it? And then that's what the market conditions still, make it. So it's still just kind of stuck here for a minute until the market's ready for it to go. We've talked a lot about these things in here. I still think like max target for like XRP dominance is up there around 12%. And then we showed this in markets in the morning yesterday on structural behavior in here. That's really what we were really needing to see in there, was to see some type of pop, push us back up in there. So things still seem to be on pace there too. Same things go for SWE. And I don't ever show SWE to be like, this is going to be the best thing or give the highest percentages in any way. We're just using structural behavior because it seems to be on wave 4 for wave 5. The expectation that there would be a slight sweep of the lows. We got that sweep of the lows during the whole event that we just had, and then prices have now pushed back up. So that's seeming positive as well. But still, even with the price push that we've seen so far, it still seems like we definitely need a bigger push out of here to be kind of hooting and hollering that we're out of the woods. I think that's the same for XRP right in here. It looks good to be back right there, but definitely want to see it pop through there. And that's the same thing for Bitcoin, right? So it's kind of like the halfway moment to be like, yeah, hey, can we push that thing? If we push it, it's like, okay, it's still probably going to pull back from there, but it drastically increases the confidence level that the low's in. And so I think that's just one more pop that we're all kind of waiting for to be like, yep, we're good. There's still going to be pullbacks, right? Or in the event like this, yep, we're good. Still going to be pullbacks. Right. And it's kind of like sitting in somewhere like right here and making sure that you're not somewhere like right there. Right. I think that's kind of where we're at right now. The same thing for XRP. Same thing for the stock market. Same thing for Bitcoin. So I think we're all kind of waiting on just like one more little push in here to say, boom. That seems to have confirmed the bottom was in. Again, still will be pullbacks from there, but beautiful. And, we'll circle back to XRP one more time as well, because someone in the chat yesterday had mentioned, this also reminding them of the correction of Ethereum back in 2016, right? And that is the concept of what we're discussing here on the XRP price chart as well. And it's like essentially kind of being like, all right, are we right there right now? Can we get that big push happening in there? Right? Maybe it'll be the news catalyst that ends up being the thing that causes it. Still, there would be still a similar correction happening after that. But I think this is still just the moment we're all kind of waiting on real quick to get through a little bit more of the uncertainty at this exact moment. Things are looking good. It's like, okay, wait, we're kind of setting up for it, but we need to see the move happen in order to say, yes, it seems like we'll pull back, but it looks like we're on our way. And that's kind of what we're waiting on right now. And to make sure that what just happened in the United States stock market is not like what we experienced in crypto back in March, where you know it, I know it, we all know it. We got a ricochet back to the upside that was quite exciting. Crypto community was very excited during that, but it didn't take long for things to turn back. And so it's just making sure that that's not what this moment is over here in the US stock market. I think the market is definitely excited to see a pivot happen in regards to the narrative. And it's not so much that the other countries are like the big player in trade. The big player in trade is China. That's the one that totally matters. But the stance that was being taken was perceived as kind of crazy and didn't make any sense to the market. Now things are making a little bit more sense to the market. This whole thing is all about China. Now I think the market's probably wanting to see, is there going to be any progress that happens there? But I will just say from a chart perspective, my thoughts are, if we were to take this plunge in here, and then if we were to get back here, I would think that it's already done. Just from charts, only looking at charts and nothing else. My expectations would be if we started capitulating, by the time we got back here, the capitulation would already be done, and that the next move is that. That's what my thoughts would be all day. And so that's what the chart looks like to me. That is the next move to end up coming in here. It is just that the stock market volatility and narrative changing and percentage swings that have happened in here have been so absolutely wild, and nothing has changed with the whole China stuff. So none of the really big issue has been resolved. It's still like we're actually like still like practically halted with trade with China at this point. That I'm just curious if the market was doing something of a short squeeze of extreme max pain yesterday, and that a lot of people went short, and those shorts just got blown out. And then all the money that sold at the bottom FOMO'd back in. And then that begs the question, is there enough juice for it to completely reverse out of here and keep moving forward? Or is this a temporary moment? And I think, with less than 24 hours removed from it, it's hard to really gauge that. But simply from a chart perspective on things like XRP, my thoughts would be, in any type of normal circumstance, the fact that we got back there would imply the next move is that, and that we're kind of working out something like that. And in the case of our other chart, like that. Just chart wise, that's what I would see. This has just been a wild moment. 24 hours ago, it was max pain, and 12 hours ago, it's euphoria. So, right, it's a lot. So the best I can do right now is just kind of maintain that monotone, kind of like, all right, there's a lot going on here. 24 hours ago, remaining long had to be the thought process that, what? It looked really bad out there, but I'm going to have faith that this is not how the end result is going to be. And that's was having to kind of take a blind faith leap there that ended up being the right result. But I still think there's variables unknown. And so just kind of remaining calm, remaining nimble, not getting too emotional in this moment is kind of where I'm trying to remain right now, because I think there's a lot of complication in there. But in the event that we got that move to happen there, like on the XRP price chart, and we got that move to happen there for Bitcoin, my guess is those things might happen simultaneously. And then like what we just talked about with Bitcoin, that would kind of ABC over here, that would be where you'd probably get that as well there too. So I think that's what we're all kind of waiting on right now, if it'll be market conditions that do it, or if it'll be like the mix of the narrative of the SEC formally announcing that the Ripple lawsuit is completed. So a good move yesterday. Again, just from a technical perspective, my thoughts would be the fact that we even got back here would imply that we would have a move to the upside. Just let's give this another day or two to kind of play itself out and see how the stock market reacts here after this big short squeeze and FOMO euphoria that happened yesterday. Because if big tech has topped, and that was like the ricochet moment for big tech, we'll see how much exiting happens on this actual pump from like the Mag 7. Which, still leaves that door open, where will that money move to? But I'm going to be real interested to see how the reaction happens on this with things like Microsoft and Apple, Tesla, Google, etc. So nice to see some life. We got pushed back to an interesting level. I do think we need one more push to be like real excited about it. So we'll see how today goes. We got some economic data. It'll probably already be out by the time I release this video, and then we'll revisit everything tomorrow. But that's going to be it for this one. You guys can check out my newsletter over here at blockchainbacker.substack.com. I do audio record all of these in here. This most recent one has a 48-minute audio recording. You can check out bcbacker.com for over 40 videos and 11 hours of content teaching you how to set up your own charts and indicators within TradingView and CoinTrader Pro. There are links within the description of this video to the newsletter at blockchainbacker.substack.com and to bcbacker.com. Otherwise, hopefully we have another good day. Emotions are everywhere right now, and hopefully things just stay calm today. So we'll check in on it tomorrow, and fingers crossed is what we get. But all right, that's going to be it for this one. Thank you so much for watching. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.